Hi everyone, and thank you for watching. This video is actually a part 2 of it's going to be a 2 or 3 part video series, but this video is about messiahs, gods, goddesses, higher powers over the ages. You know, and the age is approximately 2,000 years. In every age, we have a new shift in, we'll just call it leadership. And I thought it would be very interesting to talk about how these shifts happened in the past and the patterns that they made. By looking at that and understanding that, it'll give you, I think, some really good perspective on what we're doing and what this whole thing is all about and what's governing us, and just, you know, basically a better grasp on reality. And it's very interesting to know these things, because it'll help you navigate things and kind of see through a lot of illusions that we may or may not be living in. So a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are kind of fringe stuff, because we're talking about history, and some of it is prior to recorded history, and you know, if it's not recorded, then it has to get speculated. And a lot of this is based on things that are facts or what people believe, a lot of people agree upon. But in my last video, the first part, I talked about three ages. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 more ages. The last video, I talked about the age of Aquarius. And we just got into the age of Aquarius, or we're not quite in the age of Aquarius, but it's right around the corner, if anything, or we're here. And if that's the case, we're due up a Messiah. A Messiah is either here already and is being preparing himself or herself or whomever they are to lead the world, lead humanity. And we're waiting for that to happen. And we see all the big shifts. We see how the world is dramatically changed and how it's shifting at just really fast speed nowadays. And that's what's going on here. So we're waiting right now. We're in limbo. And the last age was the age of Pisces, the past 2,000 years, from the beginning of the Common Era all the way to almost to now. And the symbolic figure for the age of Pisces is, I guess you could say, Christ, Jesus Christ. That's the face of this age. And Jesus Christ, he represents, and I'm just going to say represent. He's the face, because it's a representative. It's representative. Just like what I'm going to talk about each of these ages. I'm going to talk about who represented those ages, who was most famous, who was well known, whose image was pushed all the way through the age, and kind of figure out and talk about why, and even just kind of learn about this type of thing. But the sign of Pisces is about compassion. It's about forgiveness. It's about just being human, no distinctions, no separation, that whole thing. And Christ was very symbolic of that. But the other side of Pisces is that, it's a duality. Pisces is 2 fish swimming in 2 different directions. So there's a part of Pisces where there's mystery, there's secrecy, and there's things hidden, and things aren't quite as they are. So that's the other side of Pisces that people don't really talk about. And with the age of Pisces, we could say that Christianity or other monotheistic religions were the face of it, but the reality, at least in my mind, is that the mystery side was just as prominent as the monotheistic religious side. Just because we didn't see it or we weren't too familiar with it, doesn't mean it didn't happen or it wasn't controlling us in a very big way. And if we're in the age of Aquarius now, a lot of that is likely to come to light. That's kind of what you expect with shifting into this age from the age of Pisces. Now, the age prior to the age of Pisces that I talked about in the first video is the age of Aries, and the symbolic person, God, entity, spirit of that time was Marduk. Now, a lot of these messiahs that I'm going to talk about, it's unclear on whether they incarnated in the flesh or not. So sometimes you may have to think about them allegorically. Sometimes you think about them as an actual person that lived and their life epitomized what that age was going to be about, and that their legend just built from there. But Marduk, the age of Aries, from 2000 BC to the beginning of the Common Era. Marduk, he's linked to the Anunnaki, and you're gonna keep hearing Anunnaki come up. Even Anunnaki is part of one of these ages, a very important part of one of these ages I'm going to talk about in this video. And no matter what you think about the whole Anunnaki thing and aliens or whatever, if they actually were aliens, or if they were symbolic, or is it just another allegory, it is part of this whole legacy thing. Each age builds on the next age, so we can't just dismiss it, even if you all the way off board with the whole Anunnaki story. So keep an open mind on that. So Marduk ran that age. He was the face of that age. Marduk was also speculated to be Amun-Ra of Egyptian mythology. A lot of gods, goddesses, and these symbolic figures, their names overlap, or not overlap. They're different names, but it's the same person, because sometimes it's a different language, and they worship the same God but in a different language, so the name changes, and a different culture, and they change it for political reasons. It's all kind of reasons like that. So keep that in mind also, because some of the names that that I may throw out, they may be different depending on where you go, but still the same person a lot of times. All right, so let's get started with the video. In this video, the focus is I'm going to talk about 3 ages: the age of Taurus, which is the very the last age prior to Aries, and then the age of Gemini, which is the age prior to Taurus, and then the age of Cancer, which is the age prior to Gemini. Keep in mind, ages go backwards. So let me tell you what an age is real quick, if you don't already know. I'm going to give you a little illustration. Take a look at the screen. An age is basically the Earth spins on this axis, and as the Earth spins on this axis, the axis does something called precess, where it makes circles. It makes little circles, and along these circles, surrounding on the bordering this whole circle, there's the zodiac, and whichever point that this circle that the pole is pointing to in this circle is the age that we're in, and whichever sign that the opposite pole is pointing toward is the opposite age, because it's the North Pole points at one, and then the South Pole points at the opposite sign. So that's how that works out. So that's my little brief overview of what an age is. Taurus, a feminine sign, is ruled by Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, and Ishtar was the goddess of this great age. Taurus is an earthy sign that governs the land and growing things in the soil. Taurus, the sign of builders, saw the construction of the pyramids, and Noah, the ark builder, represented this great age. The venerated animal was the bull, linked to the Egyptian god Ptah. The red heifer that produced the bull, once thought to represent the goddess Isis. All types of bovine were sacred during this age: bulls, heifers, red cows, and calves. The wearing of horns in ancient Egypt implied great power as ruler and prince. Opposite the sign of Taurus is the water sign of Scorpio, when came the serpents of Egypt and the great flood. Egypt was the country and the people, representing the great age of Taurus. The official ending of the age of Taurus occurred when the Israelites made their exodus out of Egypt. This would have then ushered in the great age of Aries. So, let's talk about Taurus, the age of Taurus. Age of Taurus was a very, very interesting age. Age of Taurus went from 4000 BC to 2000 BC. Surprisingly, the age of Taurus had a female god, or shall I say a goddess. It's a female, feminine energy all the way. But you'll see what I mean. This is very interesting. So, the goddess of the age of Taurus, her name was Ishtar, aka Inanna. I already told you about these goddesses and gods with multiple names and the reason why. She was the first god or goddess to be found in writing. She was the first where they found written records. She was known as the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Now, the age of Taurus, this was a gluttonous era of sensory experiences, just feeling good and doing whatever feels good, even if it's not right. People did it. So this is like a devilish era, devilish period. Maybe fun, but sin, sins and indulging, that type of thing. That's what permeated this age. Now, Ishtar, her portrayal through my research, it doesn't make it clear if she actually existed in the flesh. And I say that because in some accounts, she's this person. In other accounts, she's this person. Like, she's a mother, a grandmother, a daughter. So I don't know if they're saying she's, the feminine energy, or if she incarnated in multiple women. I don't know, what they're saying here exactly, but it's mystery, just like all the rest of these. They're mysterious because they happened long ago where we weren't really paying attention. And she too is tied to the Anunnaki mythology. I don't know exactly how, but I've seen the speculation on that through my research. And more speculation is that Christianity turned Ishtar into the holiday Easter. So keep in mind, the age of Taurus was before the age of Pisces. So maybe they borrowed her and used her for Easter. Ishtar is the goddess of fertility. So, with Easter, you have the egg, and the egg is about birth, giving birth, and it's about the womb. Then you have a rabbit in this holiday. Rabbits are about fertility and multiplying. It's kind of in sex. Now, Ishtar, she is associated with the planet Venus. Venus rules the sign of Taurus. And Venus is all about feeling good and doing things, pleasure, physical pleasure, eating good food, indulging, just sensory overload and pleasure, that whole type of thing. Venus, and Venus the ruler of Taurus. Now, I'm rather curious to know how Ishtar existed and lived during her incarnation. If that is, she was actually an in-the-flesh woman. So that's it. I'm gonna end on Ishtar with that. And I wish I, did more research and could talk about her more. But I'm gonna go ahead to the sign prior, the age prior to Taurus, which was the age of Gemini. And Gemini is a doozy. It's loaded with information, and for good reason. The age of Gemini, this is where a lot of everything just really jumped off in regards to what we know and what's written in history, and why we know things and why we are who we are today. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is a mental communicative sign of the twins. Symbolizing the duos, we have Adam and Eve, the two opposing trees in the Garden of Eden. The twin brothers, Enki and Enlil, Jacob and Esau, and Cain and Abel. The twin brothers, Enlil and Enki, brought to earth many mental attributes, such as the various sciences, mathematics, languages, and communication skills, which are all Gemini patterns. Opposite the sign of Gemini is the fire sign of Sagittarius, which ushered in various religions, giving tribute to the space-traveling gods, who are responsible for bringing higher knowledge to the world's inhabitants, i.e. via the scenario of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The Mesopotamian Valley seems to have been the country involved at this time, and the Sumerian civilizations were the people represented the great age of Gemini. The changing of the age of Gemini to the age of Taurus occurred when Abraham left the Sumer area, as the land soon became devastated by the deadly war games between the gods. A toxic cloud formed from the bombing of cities and temples, causing the Elohim and Anunnaki to leave the area. Too much knowledge can be a destructive thing in the hands of careless people, no matter who they are. So we're talking about the age of Gemini, which went from around 6000 BC to 4000 BC. This age was considered like an information age, and there were two gods in this age. Keeps getting weirder, right? We went from just having like a female god, one single male god, and now we have two gods. So there's two gods in this age, and they were Enki and Enlil, and they were brothers, and they followed the whole theme of Gemini, the duality theme, where Enki was the good one and Enlil was the bad one. I'll kind of elaborate on how they were good and bad in a moment. And Enki and Enlil were part of a mythology that was recovered from ancient Sumerian texts. And the story of Enki and Enlil is tied to the creation story, which is very similar to what's in the Bible. And I'll just jump to the point here about how it looks like what's in the Bible. Enki and Enlil, they supposedly genetically modified human beings and turned them into smarter, more independent human beings so that they could do a job for them. And people parallel that to the Bible, saying that Enki and Enlil were the creator, and they created Adam and Eve, which Adam and Eve would be this new human being. So that's what it's alluding to, it seems. Now, reference from the Sumerian text, they were responsible for upgrading human evolution from dominantly right-brained to dominantly left-brained individuals. Enki took an appreciation to human beings by giving them greater intelligence and independence. Conversely, Enlil, the bad guy, he didn't bond with human beings at all. He saw them as just slaves and pests. Now, the whole purpose of gene modifying the human beings was for slave labor, for gold to be sent to the planet Nibiru. It's getting weirder, right? So yeah, I am implying that these two men or gods might have been extraterrestrials. This story is too rich and beyond the scope of my video to continue on explaining. So let's talk a bit about the age of Gemini and why it's so unique. Now, Gemini, the twins, is a duality sign. Many themes of this era pointed at this. For example, Enki, Enlil, a duo of good and bad. And then the whole right and left brain activation thing. During this time, humans went from relatively wild, psychic, intuitive, to more domesticated and robotic. They made a transition from like an animal to like pretty much kind of robots, kind of. The age of Gemini was definitely an information age, giving rise to writing and the first recorded information, language, diversity, communication, trade, and so much more. Much of the story seems to begin here, but maybe it is just that one of the first opportunities to actually write the story and store it began during the Gemini age. So we're actually deviating from gods and on to extraterrestrials. So now we're talking about extraterrestrials, out of this world people and gods. And we're also talking about futuristic concepts like gene modification. It makes you wonder if this is all as it seems. What were the humans like before this extreme makeover? If this actually took place, if the human beings were genetically modified, what type of human beings were they before the age of Gemini or before Inky and Enlil came on the scene? If this story is the real, true story in the most literal way as it seems. So supposedly the age of Gemini made human beings better, smarter. It was an upgrade of sorts. So what were the human beings like prior to this? That leads us to the age of Cancer. We're going to talk about the age of Cancer. Now, Cancer is ruled by the moon and is a feminine natural sign that symbolizes nurturing and protecting life. Mother Earth. It's all about Mother Earth here. Opposite the water sign of Cancer is the earth sign of Capricorn. The creation of the atoms occurred during the great age of Cancer. A mother-type goddess ruled during this era, and the Virgin Mother and child image was prominent. The Virgin Mary and baby Jesus is an ancient pattern that originated with the great age of Cancer. So we're at the age of Cancer, which preceded the age of Gemini. And during this age, we had a very different type of human being during this time. And I think we're about to see why. Well, actually, we already know why, because we know what happened during the age of Gemini, based on what Inky and Enlil did to the human beings of that period. Now, the age of Cancer began around 8,000 BC and ended around 6,000 BC. Much of this age was during the Neolithic B period. Much of the Earth's people were transitioning from hunting and gathering to permanent settlements. Humans were much more connected to their animal nature. Humans were typically left brain creatures, right brain creatures. They became left brain creatures during the age of Gemini through the process of the gene modification, what happened during that age. So they were pretty much right brain creatures that were turned into left brain creatures eventually. Now, this isn't saying that they were right brain creatures isn't meant to be derogatory or saying that they're inferior to us or anything like that. Quite the opposite. They were good for what they were doing at that time and what they had to do. Now, they simply were just firmly connected to the wheel and the vibration of the earth. They were creatures of the earth. They did earth things, unlike what we can do now. No, we can't navigate. We can't do. We're like, think about it. We're so disconnected from the earth compared to other creatures and animals. They all know just what to do. They know how to animal way better than we know how to animal. Now, also like psychic abilities, telepathy, sensing the environment, the weather. If a disaster is going to come, they could sense this stuff. We've lost those abilities. Navigating the earth and stuff like this, we can no longer do this stuff. And accessing our pineal glands, accessing our magnetoreception, we don't. Our ancestors could do this very easily. We've lost those abilities. But in the age of Cancer, they were full on able to do these things. Now, the goddess at the time, you could say, was the Earth herself. Earth's a feminine energy. You know, Venus is feminine, Earth is feminine, Mars masculine. You know, all planets have a polarity. Spirituality was life at that time, not religion. And a form of spirituality that was very common in this era was animism. And, you know, with animism, it's spirituality was just life. You lived a spiritual life. And life in its entirety was you interacting with everything as if it was a living creature with a soul and a spirit and was sacred. I'm talking trees, plants, rocks, animals, human beings, inanimate objects, everything. Everything had a spirit. You knew it. They knew you had one. And there was an understanding. Not too long ago, this type of talk would sound kind of out there, like someone going too far or kind of crazy, whatever. But now, with the sciences that we have now in this current era, it's, you know, sciences like quantum mechanics. It demonstrates how genius all of this might have actually been, and how you think it was primitive, but they knew something that we just learned. It's pretty wild, right? Now, these humans were very free human beings, not imprisoned by their intellect like we are. The God of this period was truly a unified one, because everything was God. Was the age prior to it, or the age like we have today. Today, God is outsourced. You have to go find God instead of looking to find God within. So, in my mind, these were to be the catalyst to evolve or devolve, depending on how you want to look at it. Those humans, they were very different from the humans of the Gemini age that followed. So those humans were very animalistic and very instinctive and had a knowing, a strong inner knowing. But when they got in that Gemini age, a lot of this, it changed. The humans were kind of like detached from the earth. You see what's going on now. People don't know how to do anything. Like, when I say that, I mean like navigate anything dealing with the earth, unless they're trained to do it. But you don't have to train any animal to swim. They automatically know how to swim. And a lot of animals, especially fish, animals that can't, or even a dog that doesn't live in the ocean or even live in the water, they automatically know how to swim. It's built into them. Us, we got to learn everything. We're so helpless, and it's like we're from another planet or something. And I think that's where these types of ideas, they really make sense when you really look at it and pay attention in that way. So I'm gonna stop the video here, and I hope you enjoyed my video. Please like, it's great. I have this year's going to be amazing. I can feel it. Some really great things, really incredible things. And I wish the same for you. So I appreciate you, and you all take care. Bye.